When it comes to the search for life beyond Earth, Mars is probably the first name that pops into your mind and mine. Exploring Mars, scientists have discovered evidence of water, suitable geological factors, and some natural conditions that could be terraformed. But have you ever considered that, right within our own solar system, there might be another planet with an even greater potential for life than Mars? In 2020, researchers revealed a shocking piece of information. They discovered phosphine in Venus's atmosphere. What does this mean? Phosphine is a chemical compound made of phosphorus and hydrogen, and it is closely associated with life. This discovery seemed to spark new hope for humanity in its quest to find extraterrestrial life. Not only that, it once again ignited debates over the existence of an intelligent species known as the Venusians, as people have long speculated. Do we have any real chance of finding life on Venus? Was Venus once a nurturing cradle for a highly advanced species? Today, we'll take you to Venus, one of the most extreme natural environments in the solar system, in search of evidence for life. Welcome to the video Mysterious Venus, Extraterrestrial Life. Today's video will be even more meaningful if you leave a like and subscribe to the channel to support those who created it. Without further delay, the main content will begin right now. Do you know what kind of planet Venus is? Venus is the second planet in the solar system. It rotates on its own axis with a cycle of about 243 days. After the Moon, Venus is the brightest natural object in the sky as seen from Earth. Venus reaches its greatest brightness during sunset or sunrise, which is why people often call it the evening star or the morning star. Thanks to relentless effort and remarkable advancements in space science, humans have been successfully exploring and researching Venus for decades. Overall, we've managed to gain some valuable knowledge about Venus, mostly regarding its geography, surface geology, and atmosphere. Before the landers from the Varina mission approached Venus, knowledge about the planet's surface geography was mostly based on speculation. It wasn't until the exploration spacecraft sent back the first images that humans realized Venus's surface was covered in sedimentary rocks and volcanic terrain spread everywhere. By the 1990s, the Magellan probe had managed to map Venus's geography in considerable detail. On Venus's map, there are signs indicating that Venus has intense volcanic activity. The detection of sulfur in the atmosphere also raised suspicions that major eruptions may have occurred not long ago. Take a closer look. About 80% of Venus's surface is covered by flat volcanic plains. Two highland continents make up most of the remaining surface area. One continent spans the northern hemisphere, and the other lies just south of the planet's equator. Scientists named the northern continent Ishtar, after the Babylonian goddess of love. Its size is approximately equal to that of the Antarctic continent. Maxwell Montes, the highest mountain on Venus, is located on this continent, standing approximately 11 kilometers above the planet's mean surface level, which makes it over 2,000 meters taller than Mount Everest, the roof of the world. The southern hemisphere continent is named Aphrodite Terra, after the Greek goddess of love. Despite discoveries of sulfur gases and volcanic eruption hypotheses, the lack of evidence for lava remains a major unsolved mystery. Instead, we only find unusual circular-shaped flat volcanic features, as you're seeing here. Remember this detail as it plays an important role in the next part of the video. Overall, Venus's geography and geology show a significant influence from volcanic activity. Venus once had a number of volcanoes comparable to Earth, with up to 1,600 volcanoes having diameters over 100 kilometers. Venus's atmosphere is extremely dense, composed mainly of CO2 and a small amount of N2. The total atmospheric mass of this planet is 93 times greater than Earth's. As a result, surface pressure on Venus is over 90 times higher than on Earth, equivalent to the pressure found nearly 1 kilometer below sea level. An atmosphere rich in CO2 along with thick SO2 clouds creates the strongest greenhouse effect of any planet in the solar system, resulting in a surface temperature of 340 degrees Fahrenheit, at least 462 degrees Celsius. It doesn't stop there. Layers of SO2 clouds and droplets of sulfuric acid reflect and scatter about 90% of sunlight, sending it back into outer space. That's also why we can't observe the planet's surface without getting close to it. All of the geographical, geological, and atmospheric conditions on Venus, as we've just analyzed, are completely unsuitable for life. So why do I say that this could be the first place where humans discover life beyond Earth? Venus is classified as a rocky planet and is sometimes even considered Earth's sister planet. It's true that its geological and atmospheric conditions are inhospitable, but in other aspects, such as size, gravitational acceleration, and orbital parameters, Venus is the most similar to Earth of all the planets in the solar system. It is believed that Venus in some aspects possesses conditions for the evolution of life that are uniquely similar to our own planet. This idea is further reinforced by modern science, which has revealed that there are many forms of life in the universe. These life forms are not necessarily carbon-based, and there may be types of life capable of adapting to high temperatures like those on Venus's surface. Let's pause here for a moment. You might find the concept of carbon-based life and non-carbon-based life a bit unfamiliar. So let's clarify this idea to make our analysis easier to follow. Carbon-based life refers to our form of life, everything around you and me. Carbon exists in most organic life and serves as the foundation of organic chemistry. Carbon has the ability to bond with itself and with a wide range of other elements, allowing it to create nearly 10 million different compounds. When it bonds with oxygen, it forms carbon dioxide, a compound essential to the growth of plants. When it bonds with hydrogen, it forms a series of compounds known as hydrocarbons, essential components in the industrial use of fossil fuels. When bonded with both oxygen and hydrogen, it can produce a wide range of compounds, including fatty acids, vital for life, and esters, which create the flavor of many fruits. Because of this, for a long time people believed that where there's carbon, there can be life. Only much later did we learn that carbon-based life is not the only possibility. For example, there is a prominent hypothetical alternative: silicon-based life. Silicon has chemical properties similar to carbon, allowing it to form complex organic molecular structures. Compared to carbon, silicon can better withstand high temperatures, acids, and bases, making it suitable for life in extreme environments. The evolutionary path of silicon-based life would also differ greatly from that of carbon-based life. The assembly of complex organic molecules and natural selection has played a vital role in the evolution of carbon-based life. However, the development of silicon-based life relies more heavily on its unique chemical properties. Silicon-based life may replicate and mutate its genetic code through the formation and breaking of silicon bonds, a distinctive evolutionary mechanism for this type of life. If you're interested in the mysteries of life forms, we'll probably meet again in another video. But for now, with the concept of non-carbon-based life now relatively clear, we should return to the story of life on Venus. The combination of similarities between Venus and Earth has led some to ask extremely bold questions. Do we have any real chance of finding life on Venus? For many years, the idea was considered absurd, until the chemical compound phosphine was discovered. The report on phosphine on Venus was published in the journal Nature Astronomy in September 2020 and received tremendous attention from the scientific community. Aside from being artificially synthesized, this compound is also known as a byproduct excreted by anaerobic bacteria. To make it easier to understand, let's use humans as an example. After a human body is buried, anaerobic bacteria in the remains will produce hydrocarbons, hydrogen sulfide, and phosphine during the decomposition process. Phosphine is a product of the breakdown of biological matter. With phosphine being discovered, many have speculated that the existence of life on Venus is entirely possible. Because if life on Venus is indeed real, then the long-debated idea of Venusians, could it also be possible? According to scientific research, the concentration of phosphine in Venus's atmosphere is relatively high, especially in cloud layers at suitable altitudes. These clouds may provide environmental conditions, such as temperature and humidity, that are favorable for microorganisms. In addition, scientists have also discovered other compounds related to the origin of life, including sulfur and methane. Since Venus's surface is completely unsuitable for life, as mentioned earlier, there are two main explanations for how life might exist on Venus. These two possibilities include life existing underground and microorganisms living in the atmosphere. First, underground life on Venus could take the form of microbial organisms developing within the planet's crust. Although the surface temperature of Venus is extremely high, both temperature and pressure decrease as we go deeper underground, creating a relatively more hospitable environment. According to geological studies, steam and liquid water might exist beneath Venus's crust, where the heat is not excessive, making underground life a possibility. The second possibility is that microorganisms could exist in Venus's atmosphere. A faint signal of methane has been detected in the atmosphere, although in very small amounts. However, similar to phosphine, this discovery could open up a new opportunity. On Earth, methane is often considered a byproduct of microbial activity. Therefore, scientists speculate that there may be tiny microbial life forms that have evolved to adapt to extreme environmental conditions and may even thrive under such circumstances. While the idea of life on Venus remains a hypothesis, evidence of life's adaptability on Earth could help shed some light on the mystery. Some life forms on Earth, such as deep-sea creatures and microorganisms living in extreme high-temperature environments, have proven their ability to adapt to seemingly impossible conditions. Therefore, it's possible that life forms on Venus may be similar to certain organisms that thrive in harsh environments on Earth. However, we probably shouldn't place too much hope in discovering life on Venus at this moment, as some opinions suggest that the presence of phosphine on Venus may not be related to life at all. Shortly after the discovery of phosphine on Venus was publicized, a scientific study immediately challenged the idea that life might exist there. It was suggested that the phosphine might not be biological evidence, but rather geological, pointing to recent or even current volcanic activity. According to this theory, volcanic eruptions may have pushed small amounts of phosphite from beneath Venus's surface up to the atmosphere as volcanic dust. That phosphite then reacted with sulfuric acid to form phosphine. So the inability to find life on Venus at this time is completely understandable. That may be true for now, but it doesn't mean that Venus has never supported life. In fact, as discussions about life on Venus have heated up again, theories about Venusians and ancient civilizations on Venus have also been brought back into consideration. After many years, you might be surprised to learn that Venus may once have supported intelligent life, perhaps even more advanced than humans. Through research on Venus, scientists discovered that the planet once had an environment very similar to Earth's. In 1978, NASA's Venus probe found evidence suggesting that Venus once had an ocean on its surface. Scientists believe that the planet maintained stable temperatures for around 3 billion years before becoming what it is today. During that time, the highest temperature would have been around 50 degrees Celsius, and the lowest about 20 degrees Celsius. This means it was extremely suitable for water to exist in liquid form. However, around 700 to 750 million years ago, a massive change suddenly occurred, turning the planet into the hellscape we see today. A vast amount of carbon dioxide was released into the atmosphere, causing the greenhouse effect to spiral out of control. As a result, Venus kept heating up, and its surface temperature reached hundreds of degrees Celsius. All liquid water on the surface completely evaporated, life was wiped out, and Venus became a giant inferno. So what exactly happened more than 700 million years ago? The widely accepted scientific theory is that a massive celestial body collided with Venus, triggering intense volcanic eruptions. From there, magma spewed out and released carbon dioxide, effectively killing the planet. Once the magma cooled, the carbon dioxide could no longer be reabsorbed by the surface and remained trapped in the atmosphere. But that's not even the most astonishing idea. Other researchers have proposed an even bolder theory, that a nuclear war occurred on Venus, leading to the planet's destruction. Why would that be? It sounds insane. How could a nuclear war possibly have happened there? With 3 billion years of having liquid water and temperatures suitable for sustaining life, it's not hard to understand that this was more than enough time for a life form to emerge, multiply, and evolve. Our Earth is only about 4.6 billion years old. A span of 3 billion years of evolution could have allowed life on Venus to become a Type 2 or even Type 3 civilization. So the idea of a war, even a nuclear war, happening is entirely plausible. The war might have come from internal conflict among the Venusians, or it could have been the result of an invasion by another extraterrestrial race. Do you remember the circular volcanic formations we mentioned at the beginning of the video? In fact, scientists can't confidently say whether these are volcanoes, craters, or something else entirely. Of course, many people reject and criticize the idea of a nuclear war on Venus as pure science fiction. But let's consider this from our own history. From the moment humans first appeared to the development of nuclear weapons, it was a very long journey. As we just discussed, the hypothesis suggests that Venus was suitable for life for over 3 billion years. However, one thing is undeniable. If the Venusian civilization had developed, it must have left behind massive traces from mining, construction, and industrial activity. So logically, we should have found at least some remnants of that. No matter how brutal their nuclear war might have been, or even if they migrated elsewhere, the traces of a developed civilization should still exist. But perhaps they overlooked one thing: time. The catastrophic event that destroyed Venus happened 700 million years ago. Now ask yourself, what could possibly survive for 700 million years, especially under such extreme conditions? Today, we are indeed extracting fossil resources left over from ancient times. However, we can't just go to Venus to explore and search for similar things. What if the traces of the Venusian civilization are still buried beneath the surface? Now, let's suppose that an ancient civilization once existed on Venus. What would the intelligent beings who lived there have looked like? And after the nuclear war that destroyed their world, where did they go? To answer this question, we need to begin with a famous case from the Blue Book Project, a research program established by the United States to investigate unidentified flying objects, UFOs. On November 20th, 1952, a Polish-American man named George Adamski and 6 of his friends went to California's Mojave Desert for a survey, combined with a small picnic along a 17-kilometer desert route stretching from Arizona to Nevada. There, they unexpectedly spotted a massive silver UFO hovering in the sky about 800 meters away. Adamski quickly took a few photographs before jumping back in his car and driving toward the object, only to lose sight of it. His friends watched him leave with concern. Adamski drove to the spot where the flying saucer had landed. There, he saw a strange man, who looked like a European, waiting for him beneath the belly of the saucer. The man appeared to be very intelligent. He smiled and spoke in a language that sounded similar to Chinese. When he realized that Adamski couldn't understand him, he switched to gestures and communicated through telepathy. He introduced himself as Aeon, and Adamski later referred to him as Uton, a being from Venus. The extraterrestrial said he had come to investigate recent events occurring on Earth involving serious global issues, including the United States nuclear weapons testing. Aeon waved to Adamski, signaling him to follow. They walked together and stopped near a flying saucer made from a semi-strange metal resembling silver, which hovered in mid-air, floating slightly above the ground. Adamski asked how the saucer moved forward and backward. Aeon explained that the craft used the principles of magnetic attraction and repulsion. These small saucers were brought to Earth by motherships, large vessels that travel across the universe. After about an hour of conversation, Adamski asked to take a photo but was refused. The Venusian also asked Adamski to hand over the photos he had taken earlier. Once Adamski gave them back, the saucer lifted off and vanished into the sky, leaving only a few strange marks on the ground. Adamski later compiled his experience into a book titled "Flying Saucers Have Landed." Upon publication, the book became an instant bestseller, translated into 18 different languages. But that wasn't the last time Adamski encountered beings from Venus. Following the initial meeting, he claimed to have been invited aboard the saucer several more times to go on interstellar journeys. He documented these experiences in a second book, published in 1955, titled Inside the Spaceships. This book also became a bestseller, just like the first. However, unlike Flying Saucers Have Landed, the second book sparked greater skepticism and controversy regarding the truthfulness of Adamski's story. Why is that? Much of what Adamski described in his second book doesn't align with detailed observations from modern science. For example, in Inside the Spaceships, Adamski claimed he boarded a mothership shaped like a cigar and traveled to the vicinity of the moon. From the spacecraft, he said he could see inside a lunar crater, which supposedly contained a vast network of large warehouse-like structures. Adamski further described traveling to Venus, where he saw futuristic cities with rainbow-like domed architecture, flying vehicles that resembled cars, and tropical flora and fauna similar to those on Earth. In the book, the Venusians told Adamski that many planets across the universe harbor life and civilizations. The reason humanity doesn't know about them is because we only see the barren sides of these worlds. Clearly, these claims are in direct conflict with what modern science has observed. We've been to the moon. We've sent probes to Venus. and none of what Adamski described has ever been found. So, did Adamski deceive everyone? In fact, as early as 1953, Captain Edward Ruppelt, a key figure in Project Blue Book, decided to investigate Adamski's UFO claims. He traveled to Palomar Mountain in California, wearing civilian clothes to avoid drawing attention. He then attended a public lecture by Adamski, held before a large crowd at a local restaurant. Ruppelt concluded that Adamski was a skillful con man, talented at spinning UFO tales designed to profit from devoted followers and gullible audiences. He compared Adamski to the famous showman P.T. Barnum. For those unfamiliar, Barnum was an American politician, performer, and entrepreneur, well known for promoting hoaxes and founding the Barnum and Bailey Circus. Though he was also a writer, publisher, philanthropist, and briefly a politician, Barnum once openly admitted his goal was to put money in my own pocket. Describing Adamski's speaking style, Ruppelt wrote, "Looking at the man and hearing his story, you immediately feel compelled to believe him. Perhaps it's his polished appearance. He wore a worn but neat work suit, with silvering hair and the most sincere eyes I've ever seen. He spoke so softly and simply that it touched the heart. Adamski gave the impression, most people think I'm crazy, but honestly, I'm really not." When Adamski finished telling his story, Ruppelt paid close attention to the fact that many audience members were buying copies of Adamski's UFO photos being sold inside the restaurant. At another lecture organized by Adamski and his associates, Ruppelt noted that people were emptying their pockets just to hear him speak. According to Ruppelt, Adamski's tales of other worlds and the Venusians always painted a utopian picture. On those worlds, there was no disease. They had learned how to cure all illnesses, no war. They had mastered peaceful living, no poverty. Everyone had everything they wanted, and no aging. They had discovered the secret to eternal life. In the 1960s, Adamski's UFO lectures, and especially his first two books, made him a wealthy man. In 1962, he claimed he would attend an interplanetary conference held on Saturn. Then in 1963, he announced he had a secret meeting with Pope John XXIII and was awarded a Golden Medal of Honor by the Holy Father himself. However, skeptics discovered that the medal Adamski proudly displayed was actually a common tourist souvenir made by a company in Milan, Italy. He showed it to friends in a cheap plastic case, the kind typically sold in gift shops around Rome. Adamski claimed he met with the Pope at the request of extraterrestrials, and that this highly questionable meeting was meant to gain a final approval from the Holy Father. His increasingly bizarre stories sparked massive skepticism. Adamski endured many accusations and attacks until he passed away in 1965 while giving a lecture. After his death, the idea of Venusians faded into baseless science fiction. There was no advanced civilization on Venus, and no nuclear war ever happened there. As Venus became known as a dead planet, it seemed like the story had finally come to an end. But surprises always come at the end. Nearly 50 years after Adamski's death, another Venusian appeared. And in some way, she made people reconsider that maybe what Adamski said could be true. At an international UFO conference in Nairobi in 2014, a striking platinum blonde woman drew much attention. She introduced herself as Omnek Onek. Though she had a human appearance, she claimed she was truly from Venus. She looked about 50 years old, but said she was actually 250. This was understandable, she explained, because a more advanced civilization would naturally have a lifespan far beyond that of ordinary humans. She said that long ago, planets like Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus had physical life. These planets and other civilizations from distant galaxies were the ancestors of humankind. They were advanced civilizations much like our own, and at a certain point in their evolution, those planets transitioned to a higher state. The inhabitants of their cities and societies had elevated their consciousness, and their physical bodies could now enter a different form of existence. In higher dimensional spaces, our naked eyes cannot perceive anything. These higher realms aren't located somewhere far away. They coexist with the space that humans can see. However, higher dimensions are made of extremely fine matter, which is why they are invisible to us. To better understand this, consider that our current space is composed of particles at the molecular level. Meanwhile, higher dimensions are made up of particles that are far more microscopic, possibly quarks, neutrinos, or even tinier particles that human science has yet to detect. You could also think of gods, spirits, ghosts, cell phone signals, or incense smoke as things that may exist in these realms. Faced with much skepticism, Omnek Onek remained calm. She stated that everyone has the freedom to choose whether to believe or not, and she fully respects that free will. As for why she came here and what her purpose was, she chose not to reveal it. If Venusians truly exist, then the story of a nuclear war on their planet might very well be true, especially considering what became of that now dead world. A few exceptional survivors may have reached a much higher form of life, one that we can no longer detect. The story of life on Venus and of the so-called Venusians can be interpreted in many ways. Perhaps Venus truly did once harbor life, and as they evolved, they left the planet to ascend to a higher dimension. Some of them might have come to Earth to observe and monitor the development of lower civilizations. Or perhaps life on Venus exists only in the form of tiny organisms hidden deep within the planet's surface or floating within its thick atmosphere. What do you think about this? Should we believe in life, or even the existence of Venusians? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below the video. For now, that wraps up our story. Goodbye and see you again in the next videos. Wishing you a wonderful day with your family.